Good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, all of northeastern Ohio, the world that's out there. You're listening to the Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and Jonathan Broadbent.
Good
Um,
morning, all.
we were just bantering various topics to talk about today. If you have anything you would like to talk about, do me a favor and chat on our Rumble, Facebook. Although I gotta go look at those chat windows. Go chat and tell us any particular interesting topic. We're shooting for the hip. This is Open Line Friday, so if you want to
Yeah,
hear us talk, comment on any particular subject, shoot us a line. Stu, you can even shoot us a line, and we'll respond to whatever goofy thing you happen to come up
I
with.
can see it now. Stu's going to type into Facebook. Socialism is great. It will save the world.
It's
It'll
quite
save America. We'll all love and sing Kumbaya if there's socialism.
yeah.
That's what I'm
It's
anticipating.
it's Cleveland's Bernie arm right here, Stu. If you're listening out there, Stu. So
Yeah,
if you're
Bernie
if you're
Sanders.
getting your coffee this morning and you're just settling in, we're gonna have kind of an open Friday. Talk about a few things, different topics this morning. If you'd like to call into this program, 440-946-9468. And you can always chat with us on Rumble, YouTube, or Facebook, where we're streaming live. And we are being brought to you today by Red EFT, an arborist, a tree guy, all around good guy. He was supposed to be with us this morning, but he had a crew to get ready this morning because they're busy, busy, busy. And so, Andrew, if you're listening, we're going to miss having you on. He did say he wanted to come on the program, and so we're going to talk about next week. But so Red EFT, an arborist. If you have some trees that are falling over, you just want to get them taken down. If they fall over in your house and you need to get them cut away from your house, you can call Red EFT at 440-850-4968. You can
Yeah, Red Aft. I imagine they're busy right now.
text
Days
them.
like today, it looks sunny and bright. I'm sure they're very busy out there,
And the
trimming and pruning and
and the VFW out of Chardon and Middlefield, and the American Legion out of Chardon and Newberry. And so, great guys, veterans. Go have a beer with a veteran this weekend. We're coming up on Memorial Day, and of course, we'll be celebrating that and veterans. Um, so, reach out and thank a vet, and thank the VFW for supporting this program. We're always proud to have our veterans stand up and support us. So, with that said, I'm going to lead the conversation. There's a couple of different things we can talk about. In this last election, there was some dark money that came into Geauga County through an organization called Ohioans for Responsible Government. A couple of things we know, a bunch of stuff we don't know, but what we do know is they're not from Geauga County. So we had a guy from Lake County, Dave Kalk, who started a PAC and called Ohioans for Responsible Government. And it's kind of a shadowy organization. It's kind of hard to know who's donating money, although their campaign finance, they're required to file campaign finance reports. And I'm going to be pulling their post-election. I pulled their pre-election campaign finance report, and it didn't show too much. It did.
but it showed three. Yeah, I published that. There's three contributors, and I had some conversation with one of the three, which was actually a pleasant conversation. But actually, just to clarify, because we're kind of putting it all out on the table for this morning's conversation, there was an organization with the same name based in Columbus in the around 2008 or 2009 to 2016. And then, according to public records, they closed in Columbus. But the same name opened in Wadsworth, Ohio in 2023. So in 2023, a group based in Wadsworth used, and you may have heard this before, we've been discussing this on air, to try to get the information out as we collect it about this organization. So it's widely understood that some very high profile political figures were behind the opening of this Ohioans for Responsible Government. And if there's a misnomer out there, significant ridiculous misnomer. It's Ohioans for Responsible Government, and then attacking everyone who's responsible. But that aside, this was created in Wadsworth, which is in Medina County, and a lawyer from Mount Union was used to set it up in order to shield the identities of the people running it. It's pretty well known who created and who set that one up. Potentially separately, but arguably probably connected to that, a young man in Lake County just recently filed for, what's the term for it, Skip? He's the designation of treasurer.
Yeah, it's a
Is that
designation of treasure for them. They form a PAC,
designation of treasurer?
political action committee. Yeah.
A political action committee in Lake County. So parts of this are visible and we can see. So we've pulled a campaign finance report for one, and it shows some names, including Geauga County's very own Frank Antonucci. Is having the A last name, and last name starting with A is at the top of the list for people who gave money to that PAC in Lake County. And these are the people who created those fake slate cards and the attack ad postcards that came into Geauga that appear to have been roundly ignored and, for the most part, unsuccessful. So far, their only success, at least according to appearance, their only success appears to have been my race. And interestingly, my race for the volunteer position of a county central committeeman is the only race in all of Geauga County that they focused on. They focused on exactly one central committee volunteer in Geauga County. But then that gets weirder from there. Stay tuned on that one because there's some really weird stuff, some murky things coming out of that race. But I wanted to interject kind of the full picture. So thanks for hearing me out on that. Back to
Well,
you, Skip.
and there's even more to that picture. It's not unusual for organizations that want to kind of hide what they're doing to form a nonprofit corporation with the same name as a PAC, and the nonprofit corporation kind of hides who those who are involved. You really have limited opportunity to pull documents. PACs are more open because you have to file campaign finance reports, and you can see who they donate to and who they spend money with.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see who's inside of the PAC. There's no public information request. They don't have to comply with those or whatever. So the people that are actually involved with the PAC, you don't know. The people that are actually involved with the nonprofit corporation, you don't really know, outside of the attorney who happens to have submitted the paperwork for that group, person, whoever. And so, but it's a very shady way to do business, and not transparent, which is contrary to Ohio law. They want transparency in the political process. That's the objective. But
That'd be nice.
these two organizations are kind of hiding that. And the reason for bringing it up, I mean, our this primary election season's over, but we are coming now into a general election season. These organizations still exist, and it's the assumption is that they're still pouring dark money into those organizations to affect the outcome of an election that's coming up, the general election in this case. And so we'll see what happens. Just be on guard and be on notice that this organization does not have integrity, doesn't have honor. It's not operating and transparently. And so if you happen to receive information and they try to influence your decision process, understand who they are. We're bringing that up for that reason. And so, our election process is influenced by a number of factors. And I'm going to point out another one, and that happens to be the news media. So the Voice of Geauga was involved with, I don't want to say sponsored, but helped to coordinate a meeting for property tax in Middlefield, Ohio. And the press was there, the Maple Leaf was there. And I see we're coming up on a break, so I'll wrap this up quickly and we talk more about it on the other side. But the Maple Leaf was there, and the person the reporter who was there it was interesting to see the report that came out of that event. There was a lot said, and the video, you can find the video so you can see for yourself, judge for yourself, is on thevoiceofgeauga.com. So if you want to see the video of that entire event, you can see it there. But the picture chosen to be in the paper was not flattering. Some of the commentary was opinion that was not totally accurate. I was quoted for some reason. I didn't participate. I wasn't a presenter. I did comment on a few things,
I
but
can guess the reason.
and so it's interesting the way the media spins things, and so we'll have
Yep.
that coming up in our upcoming general election. Also, the race between John Husted and Sherrod Brown is going to get very um, animated, very I would predict hostile. And so it would be interesting to see
Oh yeah.
how that whole race came. We've got a Marxist socialist, Sherrod Brown, who did nothing the entire time he was in office, and he was in office forever.
Did
Uh,
nothing good.
and so John Husted may be kind of milk toast also, but he's at least not a socialist. So with that said, we're coming up on the break, so I'll shut up. We can talk more about
Yeah,
this on the other side.
we are coming up on a break. Don't forget to come and find us on social media, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. Click the like button. Don't forget to also click that bell to get notified when we go live on the air. Join us at 440-946-9468. Voice of Geauga is going to come back with more on the other side of the break.
Mics are off, mics are off. Playing the red spot. Last time, red spot we played.
Okay. Red Eft. All right. So one of the things I think I may bring up when we come back are those, not everybody's aware of it. I wish more people were and maybe watch the testimony. But there was a high profile person from Google years ago. I think it was like the 2016 election, uh, who testified before Congress that according to their algorithms and metrics, they Google, just based on what results show up when you search for information on political candidates, feels that they can steer elections by up to, like, I forget exactly what it was, 5 or 6 points, just because they can change the algorithm slightly to bring up only negative content about one candidate or one side of an issue, and only positive information about the other side. And I think that applies to the approach that local media takes in covering things like abolishing property taxes.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm reading through this article, and the reporter is either um, intentionally distorting things or is just ignorant and doesn't. She's trying to tie a bunch of things together, bringing in, and Jim Flage wasn't in this meeting. I don't know that he commented on this meeting. Carolyn Brakey wasn't in this meeting, but she's taking some comments out of other meetings and trying to tie them into this meeting and create some sort of a narrative. It's interesting. It's not accurate, but that's typical of the media. So for the Rumble crowd, the Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook crowd out there, I don't know if you when you tuned in, but we're kind of shooting from the hip today. Any topic. This is open line Friday. So if you have a topic you want to
30
talk about,
seconds, 30 seconds.
then chat, throw out a topic if you want to, or call the station, and we can talk about whatever topic you want to talk about. And Jonathan and I will respond to just about anything.
10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent. We are serving as your hosts this morning. I want to draw your attention to a poll that was posted 2 days ago on Facebook. There is a Facebook Voice of Geauga poll asking for your opinion of local media coverage. Do you believe that the local media does a fair job or can be expected to do a fair job with the inbound, soon to be sworn in people like Steve Olowich? It's an open-ended question. We'd like to have your opinion. But part of the reason that I am personally drawn to that and think that it's an interesting topic and would like to cover it in greater detail is, and I started to mention this during the break, there's a testimony that was given before Congress. I want to say it was around 2017, 2018, relating to the 2016 elections. There was a high profile representative from Google who testified before Congress effectively. I'm going to paraphrase that Google believed at the time that they could sway elections on a candidate, topic, or issue by upwards of, and I think it was 5 to 6 points, which is a massive swing. It's a massive shift in public sentiment. And again, I'm not a tech guy, so I'm going to paraphrase here, but effectively what they were saying they could do at Google, because so many people rely on Google, is if people searched for a candidate or a topic or a proposed bill in legislature, they Google could be programmed in a way that brought up only positive information about one side or person or issue, and only negative content for the other. And it shifts public opinion. It shifts public sentiment. My reason for bringing that up has to do with local media coverage. If local media is not unbiased, because media and journalism should be unbiased. I can remember a time when it was. I don't believe that it is. I don't believe that we have local media that can operate in a professional, clear manner and conduct itself in an unbiased fashion. So, if that can be said of Google, and now we have testimony we can point to, then is it also true that local media can work in ways to shift public sentiment? And there's perhaps no current better example than the movement to abolish property taxes. So if I'm right, and my opinion, and I mean no offense to my co-host Skip Claypool, but if Skip's name is uttered in the context of abolishing property taxes, I suspect that there is a designed and intended outcome from the average reader. Because for a long time, for years, Skip has been presented, he's vilified and presented as this boogeyman in Geauga County. And the same was done recently with Judge Grendel. And so by attaching an issue or topic to a name like Skip Claypool or Grendel or something, even if it's just done artificially, and Skip was saying he wasn't even really involved, he was just there. I believe that there is a designed sort of a dog whistle intended reaction. And I haven't read the article yet. Maybe I can be proven wrong, but my suspicion is that this was a designed, engineered article to shift public sentiment. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in the upcoming elections and absolutely around the issue of abolishing property taxes. Left to our own, we, the people, from everything I'm able to see, the people are overwhelmingly for it. And polls show that. But I think that media will try to step in, put their thumb on the scale, and try to influence people into feeling negatively about that issue. Right,
Well,
Skip?
yeah, and I'm reading the article, and it's kind of hilarious, and I don't know I'm trying to figure out if it was something intentional here, or it's just a reporter who's young, inexperienced, doesn't have the background to be able to comment effectively. She's trying to understand what's being said, and her portrayal of things is just misleading. It's just it doesn't really reflect the intent of the conversation. And I did comment on a few things, and I'll make this comment here. I've already said this on the program a number of times because I support abolishing property tax. The key thing, and it wasn't stated here. It is was it in the meeting said by the panel. We will not lose services. We're convinced of that. When you eliminate property tax is simply a method. It's one method of collecting taxes. We have sales tax, we have income tax, we have fees. There's all kinds of methods for collecting tax. Property tax is just a method. It happens to be the most complex, convoluted, more easily manipulated method. And so the contention of the group was, um, we'll choose a different method to collect taxes to pay for the services. Nobody wants to get rid of police. Nobody wants to get rid of the fire department. Nobody wants to see our townships uh, taken apart. And so, but the what was expressed pretty clearly by this group, by the way, this panel is a group of experts. Brian Massey, or Brian, yeah, Brian Massey, is a retired businessman, CPA, accountant. He worked with numbers his entire career. John Mara is a prior businessman and the mayor of Timberlake. John Plechnik is a law professor at a university and he teaches tax law. So he understands taxes and tax law inside and out. So to first of all, you got to start with the premise that these guys know what they're talking about. And we collect so much money. The state of Ohio and government generally speaking is abusing us in terms of collection of taxes. And so the contention of the group was that night, if I try to summarize it effectively, was that we've already collected enough money from people. It's a priority thing. It's not a money thing. We have enough money. It's just where we spend the money. It's a prioritization of where we spend the money. Ending
We don't have
prop.
a revenue problem, we have a spending
That's
problem.
right. So
And as we're discovering, there's massive waste, fraud, and abuse.
So eliminating property tax does nothing but force the government to reprioritize spending in the waste. So let's start there. And if that doesn't cover the problem, then we can always look at taxing more. But the contention of the group was we don't need to tax more because we already
No.
collect enough money. It's just where we're spending it and how we're spending it. So we'll there's $24 billion collected by property tax across the board for everything that we currently do, schools and townships and libraries and all that stuff. There's about $24 billion at the state level. Let's stop the property tax. That 24 billion goes back into people's pockets, and now we collect it in a different way, which also serves as an engine, so to speak. So if it's collected by sales tax, you now have this money recycling through the economy, which generates more benefit. And so there's just all kinds of benefits, which go to voiceofgeauga at gmail at voiceofgeauga.com, voiceofgeauga.com, and you will see the entire video, and this is covered way more comprehensively. But the point that I'm trying to make, not to get into the weeds too much on the property tax issue, is how the reporting is distorted. And so people make decisions in the public based on what's reported in the media or the sources of where they go to get information. And we have to be so careful. You have to use critical thinking skills. It's a little bit like these.
Is critical thinking still allowed?
Yeah, I have in the upcoming Voice of Geauga newspaper. There's going to be a cartoon, and it comes right to that issue in terms of critical thinking, and so you're gonna find it funny. But it comes down to, I see it so often, which is a little frustrating to me when you see these No Kings rallies. The lack of critical thinking of the people that are out there holding these signs, calling our president a pedophile and accusing him of being a felon and all these other kind of things, which are blatantly incorrect. You can only think that these folks are either dumb or intentionally trying to distort what's being said. Repeating a lie enough ultimately becomes the truth for some people. And so that's what the media does. So we have to be so careful about what we're seeing and what we're hearing. That's the purpose of Voice of Geauga. We're trying to have open, honest, hard conversations about some of this stuff. So, be careful about who you're listening to in the media, and that goes to Voice of Geauga. If you don't like what we say, you have a right to disagree and offer an opinion, but write us, tell us you don't agree, and tell us why you don't agree. Give us some facts.
Yeah, facts would be nice.
I'm seeing it.
There are a handful of people out there that periodically troll and chase around Voice of Geauga on social media and say things like, the paper's trash and they don't like it and whatever. As I said yesterday, it all boils down to the paper makes me feel yucky. But every time when asked, can you point to something that's untrue or inaccurate in the paper, there's no response. So far, we've found zero criticism, zero actual criticism of the paper or Voice of Geauga. We're coming up on a break. Remember to join us on social media. Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. Share this content with others. Skip, you'll be interested to note there's a Rumble chat. TDS, which stands for Trump Derangement Syndrome, is caused by media influence. We have our own Skip syndrome in Geauga. So the left going after you for years has left its mark, according to this commenter. We're going to come back with more Voice of Geauga on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right. Well, if you're still listening to us, it means you're on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. We are on a commercial break right now, which gives us opportunity to collect ourselves a little bit and talk about what we want to cover in the upcoming segment. Get a couple of sips of coffee and prepare to keep going. This is going to be a roughly 4-minute break. Also, if you can hear us on Facebook, Rumble, or YouTube, add comments in the chat if you'd like us to talk about something in particular. This is a subject that struck us as interesting, so we decided before this morning's show that this is what we would dive into. And if you disagree, and there are posts on Facebook that I saw yesterday on the poll. There is somebody that chimed in and disagrees, or basically made comments along the lines of the hope that because we, the people of Geauga, elected this new inbound group, including Steve Olowich and others, that media should do a fair job of covering them. Well, should do and what they ultimately prove to do may be two different things. I would love to be proven wrong, and it would be delightful if the local media did fair coverage of these individuals, but my expectations are low. Which goes to the numbers that have been shared with me. It seems like the numbers of people subscribing to things like the Maple Leaf are very, very low right now. And just like people's loss of faith and confidence in things like CNN, I think it's unfortunate and disappointing. I don't say that solely to take jabs. I'd love to have the owner groups of these organizations hear the message from We the People and change their approach. Bring up the level of journalism. Start asking the hard hitting questions. I think it would be delightful if they did. The Chagrin Valley Times, the Geauga Maple Leaf, and others. What if, in my book, it would absolutely be a better world if they stuck to their guns and went in with better journalistic approach, asked the hard hitting questions, involved themselves in investigative journalism. But for my part, right now, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, we'll. I've got another little topic that I'll interject at the end of the break, which goes along the same line. I'm reviewing some of the quote unquote news pieces in the one of our local papers, and it's so interesting when you look at these things and see the spin on them. We got a thumbs down from Stu. I don't know why.
Oh, there's your buddy.
I'm not sure if Stu, I don't know what that is. Expound a little bit more. Tell us more about why you're giving us a thumbs down. Generally speaking, I don't think Stu likes what we say. We could say it was a beautiful day outside and the sun is shining, and we're gonna get a thumbs down probably from Stu. I'm not sure that he's open-minded or fair, let's say, but. And apparently, I didn't know this. We had an small aircraft making an emergency landing at the airport here in Geauga.
Yeah, I read about that. And then, of course,
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I think it was Cleveland.com or something came out like there's an airplane crash landed in Geauga County, and apparently it was a picture perfect emergency landing.
yeah. I had to make an emergency landing one time. and
Oh,
it was
well,
it
that
was
sounds
fortunate.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and myself, Jonathan Broadbent. We are discussing the viability and the authenticity of media coverage. There's a comment in Rumble with Facebook and your newspaper, like other things, if you don't like it, don't read it. Try to get don't try to get rid of it. Move on. We are all entitled to our own opinions. I agree with that. However, I want to be clear, the intention of bringing these up in my book, and I've brought up local papers like the Chagrin Valley Times and the Geauga Maple Leaf many times. I do not, for the record, I do not want to get rid of them. I'd love to see us as a people acknowledge intended and undue influence if it is their intention, if I'm right, and they intend to sway public sentiment rather than report on the news, then that should be called out. And if we can successfully, I started to say this before the break, and I want to emphasize this message. If we could call out, if we can make enough public outcry and outrage that bring in investigative journalism, willing to ask the questions like about our county budget. Where's the money going? Is there waste, fraud, and abuse? Find out about things like fill in the blank. Skip and I have favorite topics that we like to bring up. For about a month solid, we were picking at a group called ADP within Geauga County that falls under the auditor's office, and why they need that massive salary and why everybody there collected overtime pay, including salaried officers. And those are the kinds of questions we should expect, we should demand of local media that they cover. So I don't agree with the notion that either censorship in any way, shape, or form is okay, or that just giving a pass, like, well, it's just part of the game. Just acknowledge, just let the media try and shape public opinion. Oh well, I don't agree with that. I agree to disagree. I agree that we, the people, with things like local news stations, with the Cleveland Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com, which, by the way, during the break, Skip brought up an interesting event that happened yesterday, and the Cleveland.com coverage of it, we should demand better. Don't just shrug. Don't just roll your eyes and say, oh, well, they're not very good. It's not a good paper, but, well, it is what it is, and it is what we have. I don't agree. If enough of us say, hey, Maple Leaf, hey, Chagrin Valley Times, your subscribers are down, I believe. I'm told. I believe they're down. They're down for a reason. Hey, try this instead. So I'll get off my soapbox there.
So let me interject this. I had an interesting thought. By the way, this is nothing new. Thomas Jefferson said, "The man who reads nothing at all is better than educated than the man who reads nothing but newspapers." And so, but
Great quote.
then he goes on to say, we're left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or a newspaper without a government. I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter, but I should mean that every man should receive those papers and be capable of reading them. And so what he's trying to say there is, you should read the nonsense in the paper so that you're better informed. And I'm for a long time I wouldn't subscribe to the Plain Dealer because they're so left leaning. It's hard to read them, and the content is oftentimes they don't know proper sentence structure, and the punctuation is kind of goofy. So I'm wondering, if they ever heard of ChatGPT, but I recently
You're suggesting ChatGPT as editor.
It does a pretty good job actually. So here's a thought. If we could just count on the paper to be somewhat honest, you hear some of the nonsense spouted by like AOC, for example. She's talking about socialism and how billionaires aren't paying their fair share. If the papers would just come out and talk about topics like, what does it mean? Fair share. Define the term fair share. What does that mean? The rich people pay the vast majority of the taxes. What's fair? How much money do you
Right.
want to take from people who work their butts off and earn this money? The people that do stuff versus the people who sit around on their butts and do nothing. And so people like AOC, who was nothing but a bartender, who doesn't have the mental capacity to be able to understand the difference between socialism, Marxism, communism, and all the stuff that brings, we ought to have the papers doing intellectual pieces on Marxism, because Marxism and socialism has never worked ever. It's
Right.
destroyed. It destroys societies. The communist government is if you look at how they operate, it's a tyrannical government. They've got cameras on every square inch of downtown. They track everything that you do. Is that the environment that we want to live under? They have social credit scoring. So if you do or say something incorrect, now you can't go to school, you can't go to college. You have to work a menial manual labor job because they've determined what you've said isn't correct, or they may send you to a correction center where they brainwash you, beat you, torture you, whatever, and they do that kind of stuff. And so, is that the kind of government we want? A communist government that is total? I mean, forget kings. The socialist leader of the Communist Party, who's dictatorial, is kind of an evil person, actually. And so, is that what we want? I mean, people criticize Trump for being a king. I mean, look at what he has to do to maneuver within our political system to try to get anything accomplished, and he's gotten far more accomplished than any other president I think I've seen in my lifetime. When you actually look at productive outcomes, we've closed the border. We're bringing pharmaceutical prices way down. We're improving the healthcare system. I could go on and on. There's a long list of stuff, which Stu would probably disagree with. But if the news media would just be a little fair and not show their leaning so much. The Chagrin Valley Times, if you read the editorial section, oh my gosh, some of the goofiness that comes out of the Chagrin Valley Times. And I don't know if they're listening to our program or not. They should, because maybe we would be able to help them a little bit. Some of the goofiness I laugh at. And so I guess the point being, and I'm a little bit of a rant, the only way for you to know what's being said in that world, in that sphere that's happening, that little cultural, subcultural thing that's going on, is to actually read the Chagrin Valley Times. As much as it makes you a little ill, in the Maple Leaf and the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and even listen to NPR every so often, which I do. I can last maybe 5 minutes, only because that's the only way you're educated enough to know what's being said, that what you have to contend with in the real world. So
Yeah, there's an important expression there. Those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it. And in the context of much of this current, people struggle for the right terminology. That a lot of what we're experiencing right now in America can be categorized as cultural revolution. And we see the money that's being pumped in from all over the world, including some people who are sworn enemies of the United States. We have such an open system, a free and open society, that it allows, fortunately or unfortunately, for bad influence to come in, and people, billionaires, are funneling big money into influencing the United States. And now we're grappling with that. We're struggling with the inclusion now of these short videos and the platforms like TikTok, the influence shifting the young generation to the left is mind-boggling. And the young kids don't have context for it. When they see that fist in the air, and they're that socially, some deprived community, they oppressed, and for a little while we were grappled with BLM, Black Lives Matter, came out, and pretty soon, if there were only enough billions of dollars, Black America would be made so much better. And then we just saw the graft and corruption connected with that, but it pushed agenda. It pushed not only money but policy that shift us further to the left. The same thing, creating rivalries and adversaries between men versus women, and religion, you name it. If you create an oppressor oppressed environment, it shifts us further to the left. And people who understand the history of that, and that's again an opportunity to go to victimsofcommunism.org. It's a great website illustrating the roughly 110 million people who have lost their lives. But people would quickly see the history of exactly what we're doing right now in America. Even that fist, the big illustrated rough of that raised fist in the air, that has a long history predating the 1960s US. You go back all over the world, it's the same image, the same talk. Social justice. We're going to get social justice if only we have socialism, and socialism turns into communism, which turns into depravity, starvation, and death. But kids don't know that. They're not being told that. If they were, and if we had media that did a reasonable, fair job of presenting the facts around this, hey, there's an opportunity to go and march with a No Kings rally this weekend. Here's who's organizing it. Here's the money behind it. Here's what they actually mean. And for context, here are the things that are being done by President Trump that are leading people to use that term. Media is not covering any of that. It's an opportunity they could be covering that, but they're not. They're just saying, "Oh my gosh, just go," and they're the media, much of the media, and this is not specifically Chagrin Valley Times and Maple Leaf. I don't believe that they've fallen this far left, but much of the media, like New York Times and Washington Post, have. They've just jumped on board. They've done no journalism that I've seen. There's zero journalism around the subject of Trump's actions, his behaviors, what he's doing, whether it's legitimate, if there's precedent, if other presidents have done the same things in the past. None of it. They're not covering any of it. And it just gets frustrating.
Well,
We are going to head to break, but there are some great questions here about the most recent commissioners meeting having to do with honoring young people joining the services and some other things to cover when we come back on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
Yeah, so there are three comments here. So Skip Gardens put in a question. Could you discuss the recent commissioners meeting? I encourage everyone to watch it. I'd like to lead back for a final segment with that. And then there are three bullet pointed questions here. The first having to do with honoring young people joining the services. It was heartfelt and heartwarming and gives hope for the future. The second is the shutdown of public comment, which is still a major issue we're having to grapple with. And the third is the growing spending, growing budget for increasing property purchases for government buildings is suffocating property owners. No public input. Carolyn was the only one to vote to pause spending. Interesting. I haven't seen that yet.
yeah, well, yeah, her vote was not to go along with the library, to spend less money on the library building, and which I probably agreed with actually. I mean, I don't disagree either with Jim Dvorak or Carolyn Brakey on everything. Oftentimes sometimes they come up with the right position. Um,
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I had sent a letter that the public or the people that are on this program don't know this, but I sent a letter
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
outlining the constitutional basis or the violation of their policy on free speech, and I laid out case law to show where they were violating the constitutional free speech right. And Carolyn Brakey said,
10
"Well,
seconds. Hard out at 58. 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and myself, Jonathan Broadbent, serving as your hosts. For this final segment, I'd like to focus on some comments being made on Rumble. Could you discuss the recent commissioners meeting? I encourage everyone to watch it. That's an opportunity to go to Rumble, excuse me, YouTube, They're posted on YouTube, and you can go and watch the commissioners' meetings. There are three bullet pointed items that Gardens is suggesting that we comment on. The first having to do with honoring the young people joining the services. Apparently, it was a heartwarming segment and gives hope for the future. The second has to do with the shutdown of public comment. We're still grappling with the fallout from that move. And the third is the growing spending, growing budget for increasing property purchases for government buildings. And apparently well, not apparently, it is suffocating property owners. No public input, apparently, on that issue. I can't wait to watch this video. And it says here that Carolyn, meaning Carolyn Brakey, was the only vote to pause spending, which sounds to me like a good move. Skip, comment?
Yeah, first of all, at the very beginning of that meeting, I objected to paying for the library. So there was a discussion about the library headquarters, which is located on Ravenwood Drive, and they're going to pay I think it was $8 million for that building, the county commissioners, so they could move the Department on Aging into that building, and then the library could actually downsize, which is a good thing, actually. I didn't know that they were downsizing. The rumor was they were going to build a new luxurious headquarters building, but apparently that's not the case. And so I objected to paying anything for that building because taxpayer dollars had already paid for it. And so, and then there was some discussion about that. Ralph Spitaleri made a case for spending the money and making it the new Department of Aging, which I thought he did a good job on the case. We would disagree on the fact that we need to pay $3.8 million for that building. But Carolyn Brakey did make a comment, and I would agree with her actually, that they should have paid the appraised price, which was more in the line of 1 point some million dollars. So yes, in that situation, I probably would have aligned with her thinking a little more because I don't know that we need to pay that much for that building. But there is a strong case for making that the Department on Aging building for a variety of reasons, because the Department of Aging has been hopping around being a vagrant for, I don't know, 8 years or so, which is a shame because that they do they serve a lot a population in our county that needs it and deserve to have a good permanent location. That's going to be a good permanent location. So there was that discussion. We were starting to talk in the break about the interference with public comment. What the public doesn't know is I sent a letter to the commissioners outlining the legal background. I'm not an attorney, but I do a lot of homework, the constitutional basis for why they're violating the constitutional First Amendment rights. And I provide a lot of case law and so forth to underline that. And
Hmm.
to say that the way that they have that set up, because they have two separate comment periods which serve two different purposes. And so, and Kellen Brakey wanted to interfere with my right to have a second comment in that meeting, saying, well, we have a policy. Well, policies don't override the Constitution. Unfortunately, as an attorney, I would think that you would know that. So there's that. There's still some dialogue. I will say, in a positive vein, that Jim Dvorak defended my right to speak and passed a motion to allow me to comment the second time. So it was an interesting meeting. People might want to go watch that
Sounds
particular
very
meeting.
interesting.
So,
But
yeah.
Skip, is it fair to say, I want to put this in appropriate context for people? There historically, typically there have been two opportunities for we the people, public, to go in and speak at these commissioners' meetings. One is only uh, comments relating to something that they're covering in the agenda. So you cannot go up and speak about, let's say, the septic system and the fees that are assessed, etc., if it is not part of the agenda for the day. If it's not brought up by commissioners, you can't talk about it. Another segment, another opportunity to go up and speak is to your heart's content about whatever is important to you. You can say whatever you want. And the recent change to the rules on the public comment that Skip is referencing has to do with only allowing people to comment in one or the other. So, if you were to get up, for instance, and speak about the septic system and say, hey, I'm upset that I keep getting all these array of different bills, and it's pretty preposterous that I just simply have a septic system that cost me a lot of money, and now I'm just funneling money out the door into the county health department, you could get up and say that. But if they commissioners then go through their agenda and cover some other topic that is really important to you, you're barred from speaking on it because you've already spoken about another topic. That's, I think, at the heart of what Skip's getting at in this letter that he's written. Is that fair to say, Skip?
Yeah, I'll make a slight correction. That's not historic. That happened. The policy that broke it up into two comment sections came with Carolyn Brakey. When I was a county
Oh,
commissioner, the comment period was open. People could raise their hand and comment on any agenda item at any point in time, and there was no limitation in terms of how long you could speak. We let people go on for 10 minutes or 15 minutes sometimes. Eventually, we had to shut some people down because they were interfering with doing public business. But the entire time I was a commissioner, it was an open public comment. People could comment at any point in time. And preceding when I was elected, the county commissioners always allowed people to comment and just ask questions. You could raise your hand, whatever. Under Tim Lennon and Jim Dvorak and Ralph Spitaleri, it was my understanding that continued into that. Now there was a period of time when there was no public comment. So the law says you either allow public comment or you don't. If you don't, because sometimes you need to conduct business, and people asking questions and commenting interferes with your ability to do business. And so there are appropriate times when you don't allow public comment. And I wasn't attending meetings then, wasn't following exactly what what that was all about. But there was a period where there were some limited comment times. But that's okay under the law. You either allow it or you don't. If you allow it, you can't interfere with it, and that's where we have some problems with the current policy. It's very limited. You get 3 minutes, and they tell you when what you can talk about. So you can only talk about agenda items. They're telling you what you can talk about. That interferes with your First Amendment rights. So
huh,
there's some issue with that. And
that's a good point.
one other thing I want to comment on, and real quick, because before we're going to shut the program down. So in the most recent Maple Leaf, there's some commentary about the ex-director of CASA, and what I consider a very minor problem that she did. She wrote a letter to her CASA volunteers about the upcoming judges, and she happened to have done that on letterhead without thinking. I think it was just an absent-minded thing. It wasn't intentional, evil kind of a thing. She was just trying to help people to understand the different candidates. And so now she faces the possible penalty of 6 months in jail, $1,000 fine, and so pretty severe given the event. In the last commissioner meeting, you hear this. There's a discussion about the fact that the county auditor spent $1,000 of public money on candy that he could throw out, and many of us feel that that's a campaign thing. He had huge T-shirts with his name across it in the Maple Fest. He had big labels created for the side of his car saying, what his name is and auditor on the side of his car, and yet there's no. It'll be interesting to see what the Maple Leaf says about that. I think that was a much more significant violation, and yet he's not being brought up in charges. There's no investigation. And so that's where our media really is kind of dropping the ball on some of these things. That was in that past meeting, and Gardens was there, and so I think she
I haven't watched it yet.
watch that conversation. So
Well, we're coming up on the conclusion of the show. Maybe over the weekend, I'll find a little block of time to watch that video. Remember, you can find it on YouTube. This has been Voice of Geauga. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great weekend.
have a good weekend.